Hello everyone, herzlich willkommen zur neuesten Folge meiner Very British Actually Book Corner. Für alle von euch, die mich noch nicht kennen, mein Name ist Andrea, kurz auch Ria, und ich bin angehende Kultur- und Reisejournalistin mit Schwerpunkt Großbritannien. Auf meiner Facebook-Seite teile ich immer mal wieder Schönes, Wissenswertes und Interessantes über Großbritannien. Und da ich seit einiger Zeit auch in London lebe, lasse ich meine Follower dort auch immer mal wieder an Insider-Tipps teilhaben. In meiner Book Corner stelle ich euch tolle britische Autoren im Gespräch vor, die hier in Großbritannien bereits enorm erfolgreich sind, allerdings in Deutschland noch echte Geheimtipps sind. In der heutigen Folge meiner Book Corner ist die britische Krimiautorin Jo Callaghan zu Gast. Ich habe mit ihr gemeinsam über ihre Schriftstellerkarriere gesprochen, sowie welche Inspirationen sie dazu gebracht hat, ihren Debütroman In the Blink of an Eye zu schreiben, der nun auch auf Deutsch bei euch erhältlich ist. In der Story wird eine Ermittlerin wider Willen gemeinsam mit einer künstlichen Intelligenz in ein Team gebracht, um vermissten Fälle unter die Lupe zu nehmen und herauszufinden, ob der Mensch oder die Maschine besser dafür geeignet ist, die Polizeiarbeit der Zukunft zu gestalten. Und Joe und ich, wir werden zum Ende unseres Gesprächs auch noch ausführlich darüber sprechen, welche Grenzen und welche Vorteile künstliche Intelligenz für uns haben kann und natürlich auch, wie sie persönlich als Autorin die Diskussion sieht, dass künstliche Intelligenz mitunter genutzt wird, um Romane zu schreiben. Und damit herzlich willkommen in der Book Corner, Jo Callaghan.
And yeah, hello, first, Joe.
Hi, Ian. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to speak to your German friend. Thank you.
Oh, so good to have you. And so first, I thought we start with you just introducing yourself a bit to the audience, and then also telling us a bit about how your writing journey started and how this book then came about.
Gosh, okay, pull up a chair then. Well, hi, so I'm Jo Callaghan. Gosh, yeah, I'm the author of In the Blink of an Eye. Should I actually get a copy there? Yeah, so In the Blink of an Eye is my published debut, but I've been writing for 13, nearly 14 years now. So I work full time in my day job. I'm a strategist specialising in the future workforce and the impact on the healthcare services in particular. But I've been trying to write, get published for 13, 14 years, writing at night, after work, weekends, like many writers. And I was writing the children's and the YA market and wrote 5 books that didn't get published. And then when I turned to crime, this is the one that got published. So it is a debut, but there's a lot of work behind the scenes that went into this. And it was because of my day job, as I say, I can specialise in the future workforce, looking at the impact of things like AI, genomics, future population changes, and how that would change the way that we all work. That I was researching the impact in terms of the healthcare setting, but I did think, I wonder what would happen if you could have a AI in the police force. What would be, could you have an AI detective? And the more I researched, the more I saw that people were really looking into this. And obviously some police forces, like in America, they use algorithms, and there's all sorts of controversy around that, because if your data is racist or misogynistic, then obviously that reinforces and refeeds it. And I just thought, gosh, there's so many interesting ideas in here. I'll explore about the role of AI, policing, how we all make decisions, because human beings make very flawed decisions as well. So I paired my AI detective with DS Kat Frank, a middle-aged woman returned to work after the loss of her husband, who makes decisions according to her gut and her instinct. So the two initially clash, Kat with her instincts and Locke with their algorithms, and the story progresses from there.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's a really good description. I think that those kind of conflicts really are kind of tackled really nicely, and I felt they felt quite natural and organic in a way, because these are topics that are kind of on our minds anyway at the moment. So it kind of felt like, I can have a further conversation in a way, in the form of the book, which you probably did as well in a way.
Yeah, I was trying to expose that in terms of making us all think about, where can AI actually be helpful, and add value, but actually then what is it that humans that we can uniquely do? So because all sorts of debates about will they replace whole professions. So in the healthcare, it's, do you need radiologists because AI technically can read scans, but they can't liaise with a multidisciplinary healthcare team, or maybe give a patient bad news. So trying to think about where are the areas where someone like Locke, who can read social media, watch a film in seconds. There are some things that clearly AI can add huge value to, but then as I demonstrate in the book, because Locke is incredibly rational because it's a machine, when Kat says that she needs to go and visit a family to tell them that their son might be dead, there are 2 missing boys in this case, Locke just thinks that's completely irrational, that she'll waste 2 hours driving to a place, speaking to people, 2 hours driving back, when actually she could just pick up the phone. And Kat tries to explain, but as a human, I cannot tell a mother her son may be dead, or I should not tell her son, because part of the police's role is actually provide reassurance and empathy and compassion. And Locke will say, where's that in the job description? So I have some of it's humorous. I'm deliberately trying to make it quite sort of funny in some parts, but there's serious issues about, what is the nature of policing in general, and also what does it mean to be human?
Yeah, absolutely. And I personally, I love this balance of first of all, the pacey story, which was, it's kind of that's familiar to us in the crime genre. Then this kind of outlook of the AI discussion, or what you were just saying about what's a good police officer, or what's a skill of a good police officer. And then on the other hand, kind of pairing that with this sense of humor that is, I just totally enjoyed that, and this kind of swearing in between. Just she is kind of like she does a lot of.
I had a lot of fun with that because I was drawing on films like Terminator, when Arnie, if you know who is in Terminator 2, where there's a little boy John that he's trying to protect, and to protect him, Arnie keeps shooting people, and the little boys are saying, you can't stop shooting, you can't keep shooting people. And I was like, why? Because you can't. And I was like, why? Because you can't. And he just tries to explain that, so this fundamental human need that you can't kill people. But Arnie's just thinking, well, I'm protecting you, I shoot people, why wouldn't I? So that's quite funny, but it's got a really serious point to it. So again, trying to treat Locke a bit like a child or a teenager, because it's capable of deep learning. So the only way it learns is by asking why, which can get really irritating. And then you start thinking, why do we do things like that? So Locke, by their presence, brings a lot of transparency to decision-making processes, because he forces you to actually explain, and Locke will say that actually lots of Kat's instinct or gut feeling is actually prejudice and assumptions that she can't evidence, which in England is a live debate about our police force being potentially systematically racist. I mean, I'm not sure what the debates are in Germany, but for us that's quite a live topic.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah, especially in recent years with the Met and other police forces. But I also think what's quite brilliant is that you actually obviously went to a town, even though it's a bit set in the future, but you chose a city that it's not so prominently featured in crime fiction usually, and I thought that was quite a nice touch as well. Obviously you chose Birmingham for a reason, but yeah, maybe you can tell us a bit more about that, because I'm not quite sure how familiar people in Germany are with the Birmingham area, apart from
so I live in Birmingham. Birmingham's the second city in England, so it's sort of in the middle, and it's a large city, but it's one that's sort of characterized by lots of different industries. So lots of different immigrants have come here, whether it be Irish, Poles, German, it's always been shaped by different industries, different becoming. It's in the middle of the country. It's not like by the coast or a port like Glasgow that has one industry. It's quite an interesting place where people come and go and pass through. And it's quite urban, but also it's got lots of rural areas around it. So it's set in Warwickshire, which is a county, which is has rural and urban parts. So Kat lives in Coleshill, and even though they're rural, there's a lot of rural poverty there as well. And there's a history of all the Industrial Revolution. So I was really keen to set it somewhere they again had that juxtaposition between so it's sometimes I've got Locke standing on a 16th century medieval stone bridge, because he's an AI hologram, and I just like juxtaposing that the future with the past, but also these sorts of places by their nature are places that have been subject to lots of change through the Industrial Revolution and the agricultural revolution. So I'm sort of keen on that. Plus, I grew up a couple of miles away from Coleshill, and I know it very well, and it's a little known part of the world. So I hope people enjoy. I know the places I'm writing about, and that was very helpful to me.
Yeah, and as I was saying, it's first of all, it feels unique, and then because it is part of you, I would say it kind of really came natural about being like, oh, that's interesting. I'm kind of seeing an area that I might not necessarily visit if I'm not deliberately going for something.
Yeah, we'll put Coleshill on the map.
Yes. Everybody put it on the map. But what I also found quite interesting was this, as you were saying, so Locke is asking Kat a lot of questions. What actually makes it so challenging for her is that she gets him more or less connected to her with this wristwatch, and then he's more or less with her the whole time, and kind of asking her wherever she is, even in these private situations when she's having conversations with her son, and her son then wants to see the AI hologram, and and I think that's also quite a challenging thing to kind of have that in mind. How much
what I wanted to do there was show, because obviously I didn't want Locke to be a robot, because I personally find it's quite hard to visualize a robot without pulling it, because most robots are kind of a little bit stiff or awkward, and I didn't want to pull people out the narrative, but Locke did need to be visual, so the compiler was making Locke a hologram, but obviously has to be transmitted from something. So the actual hardware is in a steel bracelet that Kat wears on her wrist with LIDAR sensors, and all the clever stuff is in her bracelet, but projects a hologram. And I was really keen to show the fact that it's always with her in a sense, and it's part of conversations, and how the lines between work and home get blurred, which we all have with things like Alexa. When you put it on, they'll listen to conversations, and what would you do? Because Kat is a widow, and because she doesn't have a husband to talk to, she starts to talk more to Locke. So although Kat is very cynical about Locke, as it was just a machine, she actually starts talking to him as if it's a person. And I just wanted to, which kind of messes with your head a bit. So I just really wanted to show that actually, how do you keep those boundaries? And is it possible when something infiltrates every part of your life? And that's something I did, because it's a series. So I'm writing book 3 now, and that's something I'm really playing with.
Interesting, yeah. But I also thought that was really, really great, because this whole idea of how much exposure we actually have to technology, and then play with that, because I don't know if I mentioned that before. So what Kat is actually doing, she is working on this pilot program, so it's not something that the police has already established, and she just comes back to work after time off, and then her boss more or less tells her, this is what you're going to do, and she has a very certain perspective on AI, obviously because of her own experience with it, and that is a very negative one, and then she is forced to be teamed up with this AI and the inventor, the person behind it, who has her own agenda, because obviously there's a reason why she thought AI was beneficial to the police force. And I just thought that was such an interesting thing to kind of play with, that how much we're actually exposed, and how it could go, and how people would then react to that kind of change.
Yeah, because Professor Okonedo, she's the creator of Locke. A lot of experience of her and her family has been of a racist police force, and she is trying to. She wants more evidence-based, transparent-based policing decisions. In fact, she says policing is too important to be left to humans. That's her profound belief. Whereas Kat believes it's ultimately a very human campaign. So, initially these things all clash, but what I try to do is show actually we can learn things from each other. There's some things that AI can learn from humans. So AI is capable of deep learning from humans, but also we have to learn some things from AI, and it's finding that middle ground.
Yeah, I agree. And what I personally also really enjoyed was that this tension that initially is, especially between Kat and the AI, or her perception of AI. And then, as you were saying earlier, that then she suddenly starts speaking to Locke, and there's a kind of, I would go as far as say there's almost a friendship kind of blossoming from it, which I really, really enjoyed, because it was something that felt so fresh and unique. Because you know, if you look at Star Trek or all those,
exactly,
you know,
exactly,
like Data, for example. So for me, that
Yeah.
was the first thing what I could have kind of compared it to. So these kind of,
I was thinking about Spock as well as Terminator, Spock, Sherlock, because actually the relationship between Sherlock and Watson, you know, again, where Sherlock is a sort of an other, very different, you know, very gifted but infuriating as well, and they have this kind of quite intense relationship, you know. What is it? All the femmes, Knight Rider, even.
Oh right, yeah, you're right. Yes,
I watched Knight Rider as part of my initially, because I thought I wanted to avoid it, because I thought I didn't want to be too cheesy, but actually it's worth rewatching. It's very well done, and it's very funny. That reminded me, actually, you can make clever point. Humor has an important part to play, I think, in novels and films. It's worth rewatching some of those old episodes. They're really quite funny.
That's the one thing I didn't even think of. But yeah, Knight Rider is definitely, I think, one of those first things. And Kit was one of the stars. I think he was even more popular than David Hasselhoff.
Yeah, and it was audio. So again, originally when I first said the other day, I was going to keep Locke audio because I wanted to avoid the robots. So I was thinking kind of like Kit, and then because DS Kat Frank, I thought maybe we'll call them Kit and Kat, and yeah.
But you ended up with Locke, which I think is pretty cool as well.
I'm playing on Sherlock there.
Yeah, okay. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, because that's the order.
That's great. And the idea to use this hologram, because you use a particular person, which unfortunately is definitely not with us any longer. But I thought that was quite an interesting thing, because it almost gives me an outlook on if your book series is ever going to be on TV or something. It could be possible to actually make that happen with AI, isn't it? Was there a particular reason that you had him in mind, kind of going with that?
So originally when I wrote it, I automatically made Locke, because I was thinking in my head about Sherlock.
Right.
So in my head, Locke originally looked like Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, right.
And it was only when my agent said, because Professor Okenido is black, she's of British Nigerian heritage, and she said, well, wouldn't a black scientist created a black image rather than a white image? And and I just thought, oh gosh, she's absolutely right. That was me imposing my own assumptions. And then when you read about it, you can see most depictions of AI do assume a white figure, and there's something implicit that assumes white people are sort of at the top of some intelligentsia hierarchy. Right. And I just actually, she's right, a young, very clever black scientist would want to challenge that, and use this to portray a positive role model of a black male. And then it's set a few unspecified years in the future, just 3 or 4. So it's slightly ahead. So things that she's creating is kind of either exist now or is just within touching distance. And so I was thinking, who would have been a role model for her growing up? And at the time of writing, Chadwick Boseman had just died. Right. And I thought she'd have probably gone to see the Black Panther films, the young female scientist, and that would have been a role model for her. Chadwick Boseman, if you watch him in interviews, he's such a graceful, articulate, gentle, arresting, noble sort of character. I just thought if I was her, I'd have thought, oh, I'm going to use that as the training data to teach Locke the sort of the mannerisms, how to communicate, how to gesticulate. Right. So I just took, and I love Chadwick Boseman. So yeah,
definitely. And I mean, I thought that was also quite a good idea to use that, because I could see the actor obviously then instantly in my head. I had an image of what kind of gave it almost this human touch that the machine would usually be missing, but then also kind of having this idea of having a more or less unhuman voice to that kind of gives it that kind of distance again, that and that's what I find hard.
There's the balancing I still do now. So I've written book 2 and I'm just starting book 3, but it's constantly getting the very delicate balance to sort of not make them too human, because then that's not believable, but not make them too I am a robot, or getting that they need to start to develop a relationship to an extent. The relationship between Kat and Locke has to grow, but how far can you take it? So just that, it's very nuanced. That's the bit I have to work hardest on, I think, in the novel.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially if you move on, because obviously
Yeah.
as a character, a cat is, as a person, as a human being, can evolve and kind of change, but there are
Yeah.
limits to in what way Locke can learn. He can
Or
adapt.
are there? So that's the thing. So the question I'm trying to raise in the series is: Locke is capable of deep learning.
Yeah.
How much can he actually learn, and what happens when he does? Is the
Totally
thing.
right.
Yeah. So Cat, always insists in book one that it's an it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even a he, but then actually as it becomes quite hard, people then start to blur the boundaries. Oh, these are pronouns. I play with in book two as well.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, I love that. So yeah, since we're just touching on your second book, I love the title. I instantly remember. So Leave No Trace.
Oh, do you? That's good.
Yes.
We really struggled to find the title was always in the blink of an eye for this one. That was very easy. That took us a while to pick. Leave No Trace. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, I do, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So in the UK, we don't have to wait that long. In Germany, hopefully you're gonna get that soon as well. But yeah, I'm really looking forward.
So again, that title is in book two because Leave No Trace. In a crime scene, we have something called the Lockhart principle that everybody who enters a crime scene leaves a trace. So everyone, if you're a police officer, you leave DNA. So you try and restrict the amount of people who enter a crime scene because everybody leaves a trace. You take some away, you leave something in. But of course, Locke is a hologram. So they can so they actually leave no trace, which is a positive thing.
Right.
But as is there are things, because it has no material reality, there's a limit to what it can do. So it starts to become a bit of a negative a lot because they're limited and they can't actually effect or do some things because they literally have no physical bodies. It's a whole issue of, there's a lot of play on bodies and the whole sort of, can you have a brain in a vat of a jar? The philosophy debates about, is it a brain if it exists in a vat of a jar? If you don't have a host for the body, or sorry, for the mind, then what is it? Because Locke has no host other than the bracelet on Kat's wrist.
Going to be so exciting. That's going to be out in January in the UK, isn't it? Also,
no, the paperback for book one
that was January.
It's March for Leave No Trace.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very excited to do that. But yeah.
So anybody who wants to read Leave No Trace in English before it will come out in Germany, then do get your hands on it in March. But yeah, so I thought at the end kind of go a bit deeper into this kind of more or less what you're bringing new and fresh to the crime genre, which we had a few conversations before already, which I think was just this brilliant, combining the more or less sci-fi elements that we used to know, which are now not that sci-fi any longer, and they become suddenly contemporary, because that is suddenly a discussion.
It's a really good way of describing it, actually, because I was very anxious before about it's kind of sci-fi but kind of crime. Sci-fi people think, oh, don't read crime, and crime people think, oh, don't read sci-fi. But actually, you're right, the past couple of years, to ChatGPT, that's come out, it's actually here. So yes, I've merged those genres, but the same way in reality, the future is with us. So it was very timely. I was very lucky or unlucky. ChatGPT, really, things are moving really quite rapidly.
Yeah, they do. And I was just wondering, in general, because there's such a heated discussion, obviously, around AI, just in general for people, because you do have the knowledge, I think, about that, which obviously helps, because I think a lot of discussions can get a bit too heated if there's not enough knowledge there. And I think the more we know, the more we can actually kind of really understand what is happening, what is not happening, and kind of, chatting a bit about what you think. And AI, as you were already saying before, kind of like it can bring us beneficials, but obviously we have to kind of take into consideration that there are limitations, aren't there?
Yeah. So my own views, I'm not an AI expert. My views is this thing about the impact of AI on the workforce, but also other so-called AI experts I have talked to, so the people who deal with the technology, develop it, they say to me, we are not the experts. The experts are ordinary people, philosophers, writers, poets. They're the ones who need to be leading the debate, because the people developing the AI are the technicians, the plugs, the sockets, the wires. We need to take more, all of us, more of an active role. Actually, what do we want AI to do for us. And, you know, how do we want to live as humans? At the moment, it's been shaped by the market and by what's technologically possible. So because it's technologically possible for AI to write certain kinds of books or plays or they're starting to occupy that space, whereas actually to be human is to be creative. Yeah. Meanwhile, there's all these other terrible jobs that nobody wants to do, like emptying the bins. So John Maynard Keynes would say, we need to sort of perfect the art of living. How do we as humans want to live? What do we value and treasure about our personal time? And how can we use AI and the developments to liberate ourselves so they do the awful, the dull, the dirty, the dangerous jobs is what we should be doing. But that requires us humans to be leading that. So a much more demand-led conversation rather than it's a supply-led conversation now, if you know what I mean. Just because something's technically possible doesn't mean that we should do it. And then people are scared to be involved because they think, oh, I don't understand. Well, you might understand the technology, but you know what you as a human being want. And collectively, we should be shaping that, you know, where do humans at? What's the role of human beings? We need to be collectively shaping that answer.
I think that is a really, really great approach, and also kind of like something for people to actually think about. What do we want? And I think for writers in particular, the voice is quite clear what writers want, and I think that is just absolutely valid. Yeah,
because you and I, Ria, we've been to several book festivals recently.
Yeah,
and people travel, I don't know, in Germany and England for hundreds of miles across the country to see authors speak to other authors on stages here, because people. Now that makes no sense. Locke would just say it's completely irrational. Just order the book of Amazon. Why are you going to Harrogate or London? But because people want to connect with other people and their stories. And why did you write that story? How did you write it? What does it mean to you? A story is a way of connecting with other people and making you feel less alone. And that's why we write stories.
Yeah,
and read them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And especially because these discussions, these podiums where people go to, these panels, they are so popular, and people always want to know and always ask, how did you do it? And generally the questions are the same, but what makes it unique is that every answer is different, because every writer brings obviously their own experience, their own take, their own motivation, why they wanted to write a story. And what is stored in our heads, obviously, that can never come from a machine, because it's just
and what people connect with on this is I explained that I wrote this very shortly after my husband died. So my husband, like Kat's husband, had lung cancer, and then he died about a month after he died. Because I've got two teenage children. I wrote this to keep myself sane. And I didn't write it to publish. I just need to, in order to make sure I don't fall over, keep busy. And I wrote this, and so I just put a lot of myself into Kat, and made her a widow and lung cancer. So I drew on a lot of my own personal experiences, not all of it, but some of it. And then people then relate to that, because that's part of the story as to how I came to write. I wouldn't have written it without what happened. That is to me. And so an AI couldn't do that.
No, that is so true. And that was one thing, I think, especially with the early reviews that came in when In the Blink of an Eye was published in the UK, that a lot of people were saying they could really relate to that kind of bereavement, and also how to deal with that, how to pick yourself up again, and all these things. And I think because of your sadly own tragic story, it kind of really resonated with people, and they felt they weren't alone. And obviously that might have helped you as well, didn't it?
I know, and what people, because what I was trying to show is, because of anything, as a senior woman, mature woman, returning back to work, even when you've had tough times, whether it be bereavement or other family relationship issues, you've still got to go to work and put on a brave face. But that doesn't mean you don't go home and then cry and get upset. And I was trying to use, it's possible to be a strong woman, because quite a lot of films or books show kick-ass detectives and women, and I'm just thinking, but they've still got to put the bins out, or their son will be, won't clean the room, or they've got this, that they're responsible for cooking Christmas dinner. It doesn't matter how big these kids in these films, they're working 24/7, aren't they? You're thinking, when they're doing the shopping, when they're doing, because it doesn't matter how busy you was. In book 2, I've got, Kat's going to find there's a dead body out of a hill, and her son texts her, as Maya often does, saying, can you send me my passport? Can you can you do this, can you do that? They've got no concept, like, I'm busy, I've got a dead body, you know, they just don't do the life in truth. So I was trying to just trying to show that mix of how life is not, you go to work and then you go to home, it all mixes up. And then also what I try and show in this series is not that Kat's widowed and grieving in the first book and then gets over it in book 2. It's always there. It might change in terms of how it affects her a bit, but it's a constant presence, because it is, I know for me, you never get over it. So one of the characters in book 1 says to Kat, you never get over it, you just get used to it. And that's what I wanted to really, I'm really keen to show that it's not like, oh, I've got over it. No, it's always there.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read the second book, but I love that kind of idea, because in many fictional books, even though, you know, it's fiction, so it's allowed, obviously, to kind of, oh, there's a happy ending. It obviously feels more realistic, and you can relate to those kind of characters much more if you've been in similar situations. If you feel like it feels authentic in a way that, you know, this will stay with you, but it just affects you more or less, or you kind of have those, you know, you fall back, and then that is something that even after a while, some people might be surprised about, but people who know about that would know.
So that's how it is.
Exactly. It can happen after 20 years even, and, you know.
No, exactly. You never
that's
get
how
over it. You
Yeah.
never get. I've said to my children, they will never get over their dad dying. You know, it will always be. It'll be the defining event of their life. You know, they will get used to it and they'll be able to progress. But that will never. Yeah. Sorry, that's a depressing thing to say. But yeah, I just wanted to reflect that, because otherwise it's not fair. And I think that's why people have such a shock when they do lose somebody, because death is shocking. And then I think it's an expectation that you grieve and then you get over it. So I'm trying to show that, well, or really see compared to my experience, which won't be everybody's experience, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think also that is quite an important conversation to have in a crime novel as well, I think, because it is, in the end, we're talking about death, so kind of, you know, those kind of impact. And if you tackle those kind of issues in this kind of sense, it really, I would say, make people more aware.
Really... Which is why I chose to go with 2 missing boys. So that for the pilot case for Cat and Locke, they're trying to find, there's 2 cold cases of 2 missing boys. So again, I think that's a particularly painful kind of loss. If you're missing somebody, but you're not quite sure if they're alive or dead. So do you grieve or do you keep searching? I just think that's, so again, because I was obviously grieving when I wrote it, the missing really appealed to me in terms of how do you cope with somebody who's missing for 10 years, such a long time. So yeah, I try to explore that, and they're cold in English. They call them cold cases. I don't think we have the same phrase in Germany.
We definitely know how the kind of
but I've got Kat sort of saying we will not call them cold cases, because they're very hot to the families involved. They're not just in the fridge, or we sometimes shorten missing persons to mispers. And she goes, no, these are people, but I'm going to call them mispers or cold cases, or just say these are real human tragedies, and we need to try and get the answers for the families. So again, trying to show that she can be quite tough, and she's very opinionated, quite sweary, but she's also very compassionate.
But I think that personally, that made me like her more. So I always love that when you have that kind of swearing, especially from a person that you wouldn't expect to do it. It's kind of, you know.
My dad didn't like it, I have to say. Yeah. My dad's 84, and you'll see in the acknowledgements I did say sorry, not sorry, Dad. I don't know if he hates swearing, but yeah.
But he put up with it, I assume.
Yeah. He just moved on, just didn't mention it.
Yeah. And also the other thing, as you were just saying with the missing boys, Kat obviously has a son, which is inspired obviously by your own experience and you know, having a child and then having to kind of bring that in. But I also love the dynamic between these two.
Kat and Cam. So in the book, for readers, she's got an 18-year-old son called Cam, who at the time of writing, my son was 18, and I spent my time texting him going hello, and getting no answer. So a lot of it's based on my own personal experience trying to get my son to return my texts, which is resort to capital letters and lots of exclamation marks, and also because he's just about to go away to university, which is again what happened. So my husband died in January and Connor went to university the following September, so she loses her husband and her son in a very short space of time. It's like another kind of loss. So it's a positive one because the son's moving forward, which is healthy, but it is another kind of loss that I just get to capture that poignancy, which people are going through now. September, October is a time in, you know, when people move away to university and it's, you know, life moving on. So yeah, I did draw a lot of my son. Sorry, Connor.
But it definitely fits nicely with the whole, you know, the two missing boys, because obviously that's something that Kat becomes aware of as well, and has a different perspective on the knock, because for her it's something, what would I do if my own son goes missing?
No, exactly. So she can relate to it, and because it's everyone's worst nightmare, isn't it? And and also because when you don't have children, or you've got young children, if you hear about an 18-year-old going missing, you think an 18-year-old is an adult, you know, and it's only when you have your own children, you think 18, oh my God, you know, they're still children. I mean, you know, my son's 22 now. I've just had to, I have to do something. I don't think they ever grow up. I don't know, but so the idea that they're 18, they're an adult, they're still very vulnerable young people. So again, I wanted to, and Kat understands that, but a lot of other people don't.
Yeah, and I mean, from a parent's perspective, that obviously, as you were just saying, you have this perspective, they're still kind of children, even though you know they're 18 and they're grown up, but there's a part that still sees them as the young ones that you had, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's but yeah, that was a really, really lovely chat about your book, about you, and about the series, obviously.
Thank you.
And we could have talked for hours, but I think when the second book comes out, you're more than
we'll
to
do it again. Yeah, so I'm really excited. I hope we get you an early copy. Proof should be available soon, but really keen to get that out. I probably can't say too much about it, but very excited about it.
Yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to it. So and then thank you everyone. And if you want to read Jo's book, which I can highly recommend, you can, In the Blink of an Eye, published by Piper Verlag. You can get it in all very good German bookshops. And thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Ria. That's fantastic. Thanks so much.